great pleasure to welcome all of you here today. My name is Mills Soko. I am a professor of international business and strategy, as well as director of development and partnerships at WBS Business School. As a leading business school in Africa, it is vital to ensure we have an impact on the world around us. Part of having an impact means actively and publicly engaging with thought leaders to find practical solutions to some of the challenges facing South Africa and Africa. This is the premise behind our WBS Leadership Dialogues. We have been privileged to have hosted a number of eminent business leaders in the last 2 years. Through these stimulating conversations, we've been able to gain a better understanding of the role they have played in their organizations in helping to build our economy and in developing the next generation of ethical business leaders. Today, it is our privilege and pleasure to welcome Nonkululeka Gobodo, Nonku Gobodo, one of the finest trailblazers and business pioneers in our country. Nonkululeko has made her mark in business in becoming the first Black female chartered accountant in South Africa back in 1987. She is the former chairperson and founder of SizweNtsalubaGobodo, now SNG Grant Thornton, the largest Black auditing and accounting firm in South Africa. Nonkululeko's career has always been about embodying Black excellence. She's passionate about fighting racism, prejudice against women, discrimination, and mental brokenness. She set up an organization, Awaken Global, to assist Black people to become awakened to their true selves and to tap into their inner courage and resilience and to heal the psychological wounds of apartheid. Nonku is a recipient of numerous awards, among them the Businesswoman of the Year at the Standard Bank, Top Women Awards in 2014. She's also the author of the acclaimed book, Awakened to My True Self. So this is the book we're talking about, Awakened to My True Self. Fantastic book. Just last night, Nonkululeko received another accolade, that of the Forbes Africa Business Woman Award. Hearty congratulations to you. This is beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful. And Nonku is also the subject of 2 case studies. So we have a long-standing relationship with you here at WBS Business School because we are the subject of 2 business case studies that were co-written by one of our academics, Dr. Zanele Ndaba, who has also joined us this afternoon. She was going to say a few words after the conversation, but will no longer be able to do so due to unforeseen circumstances, but she's part of us this afternoon. Nonkululeko was a true trailblazer and a legend in her time, and we're grateful that she should give up some of her time to chat to us today. And thanks to all of you again for joining us today. You will have an opportunity to ask questions of our guests. Please use the chat box to write your questions or comments, and I will relay them to Nonku. In case you miss anything, this event is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel. And so without further ado, I will begin the conversation. Good afternoon, Nonku. Very warm welcome to you, WBS Business School. We're very pleased that you are able to join us today to talk about your personal and business journey. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you so much, Mills. I am so happy to be here today.
Wonderful. Okay, so I would like to talk to, the first question is a biographical one, to talk about your upbringing. You grew up in the former Transkei, and it's called Mthatha now, the town of Mthatha, but it used to be called Mthatha then, right?
Yes.
So you grew up there, and what was it like growing up in during those years for you? Any memories of growing up during those years?
Mills, it's amazing when you write a book, you reflect back, and you may have certain perspectives about your upbringing, but I suppose when you're writing a book, you have the advantage of hindsight. Mm. But anyway, growing up in Mthatha was just the most wonderful thing that I'm always grateful for. because the environment itself at that time was just so conducive, so inspirational. First of all, I always say to people, I don't have those poor background stories. Please don't expect that from me, because I grew up in a middle-class family. My parents, my father was a teacher and my mother was a nurse, and then they went into business. And because they were very strong personalities, they were role models to us, while growing up in apartheid South Africa, refusing to allow the system, if you like, to limit what they can achieve. But of course, at that time, they didn't have as many opportunities as we have today. But they made the best out of those opportunities. So we're watching all of this as we're growing up. And I always say that they did a very good job of preparing us for apartheid South Africa, because, they watched the situation and they used to say to us, don't ever allow anybody to tell you that there are things that you cannot do. And that stuck with me, that stuck with me, that I will not allow a system to tell me how far I can go and what I can achieve. But because they were in business, I had that advantage of being exposed to business early. But of course, Mills, I had those middle child stories of, they don't love me, because I'm the middle child, because I was the one who used to help in those small businesses at the time when my siblings were enjoying themselves, enjoying their holidays. And so I was like, you see, they don't love me, they don't love me. But later on, you realize that, first of all, you learn discipline early. And secondly, then I was exposed to business early, because, God knows these things before us, that, I will go into business, and I needed this exposure. But so my parents were in business, my uncles were in business, so I was socialized around business, which was really a good thing. But just growing up in Mthatha, remember there was a university there in my own hometown. How many people can say that? The first firm, black firm of chartered accountants and auditors was established by Professor Ngutlu in my own hometown. Yeah. And then there were a lot of Black people who were, in business, whether they were professionals, doctors, lawyers, engineers, or running businesses generally. So that's how I was socialized in that environment. And then, so it was so vibrant. People were starting part-time, the civil servants were starting part-time, everybody was busy. There was no time to think that would loaf around. So we had that natural inspiration that we may take for granted, but that we've accomplished the things that we've accomplished in life because of that environment. I'm always grateful to have grown up in Mthatha.
Yeah. So, Nonku, your mom was a nurse, your dad your father was a teacher, but you had a sort of there were strong personalities in your lives as children and family, but you had a particularly complicated relationship with your mother, which subsequently shaped the way you evolved into adulthood. Could you please describe the nature of the relationship that you had with her and how that affected your development into adulthood?
Yes. So I was the third child and very different from my two older siblings who were outgoing.
Yeah.
So at some point, my mother then started worrying about this child. How is she going to turn out in life? And then she started verbalizing this fear around I was not going to make it in life. And when you're a 7-year-old, you don't understand what this is about, because you don't see anything wrong with yourself. And after a while, and you must imagine my mom, this strong personality. So when she says these things, they have a big impact on you. She was the matriarch of the family. So if my mother thinks I'm not going to make it in life, then, you know, you believe that you are not going to make it in life. And so I then had this low self-esteem because I was quiet and I believed this thing. And it just defined my whole childhood. Besides the fact that, you know, what I shared before about the impact I had on me is still relevant. But this whole thing of being a failure was a big thing. And so you fall pregnant and at age 17 because you don't feel like you fit in your family and you're looking for love outside the family. So when I fell pregnant, my parents were like, yo, we're not going to have what they call illegitimate child. You have to get married. So there I was, 17, pregnant, married, no matric, not knowing what I want to do with my life. And you could see in their eyes that they thought that my life was finished, my parents. And so, you know, so I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my father then said, okay, as we're figuring out what you want to do, because they wanted me to be a doctor, just because I was, you know, a little bit smarter than my siblings, but not necessarily a student at all. And so I went to work at this panel beating shop. That's where I found myself. And because then I was taught this bookkeeping thing, and I caught on to it very quickly. And then there were these two white managers there who were running this business for my father. Up at South Africa, this was my first job. You know, I had never been. We grew up in Transkei, so, you know, things were not as bad as South Africa. I'd never really been exposed to sexism and racism to that level. And then I was like, what? 19 years old, I'm not gonna have it. I'm just not gonna have it. I stood up to this white man. I didn't even report them to my dad. I dealt with them myself, and they knew that they were not going to treat me like they were treating everybody else in the business. So out of that experience, there was a waking up to, no, man, I am not this thing that I believed I was. I am not this thing that my mother said I was. And certainly being exposed to chartered accountancy for the first time in my life, I didn't even know such a profession existed. I had clarity of what I wanted to do. I enjoyed accounting. So I was able to go back to my dad and say, I know what I want to do in life. But what I want to, you know, when you're going through something, Mills, you don't think about it. You know, you're just going through life. But when you reflect back, I was just amazed that I joined my father's business in September. By the end of the year, I found myself, I had clarity about what I wanted to study. I, you know, told my dad that I wanted to be a chartered accountant. Went back to school the following year to complete my matric, and my life was on track again. That it happened so that quickly. So when I reflect on my life of ups and downs, you know, there were moments where I lost myself in life, and then I would find myself again and do something bigger. But it always amazed me that changing my life was very easy and very quickly. It was quick. And so I want to say to the listeners today that, you know, we grow up in situations where we are defined who we are, you know, teachers, well-meaning parents, the first boss, and everyone else. And we then end up with limiting beliefs because of these things, let alone growing up, you know, in the kind of environment in terms of apartheid and all of that. Just basically, that the real person is not defined by what people believe about you. The real person is always there. It was always like, you know, when you wake up and it's cloudy, and then by midday, the clouds are cleared and there's a blue sky. That blue sky is always there. So no matter what you believe about yourself today, the real you is always there and you can find it. And when you find it, your life changes like that.
Now, Nonku, so we'll come to the piece about the early part of your chartered accountant career in a second, but I just want to, because I see this permeates even your book and your thoughts, this piece on your self-discovery and awakening to your true self, and how that experience you had with your mom shaped you, and it just really, really big piece of your life. And what I want to establish is, so having grown up with these feelings of low self-esteem, and I'm happy on this because all of us, many of us can relate to this, So it's very important. So you grew up with feelings of low esteem and rejection, largely because of your childhood experiences, and that shaped the way you conducted your relationship in future, whether with your husband or with your partners in business, or with your, how the past shapes the present, and it catches up with you in a way, and so you had to embark upon this journey of soul searching, to try and find out, to put it negatively, what was wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why is everybody complaining about me? They misunderstand me and all that. And so to speak, to slay your personal demons. Where did you start? At what point did you realize that you had to really, really now start this personal journey of soul searching? What motivated it? And also, what advice would you give to young people who grow up with similar feelings of rejection and poor self-esteem and of being misunderstood? What advice should we give them today in retrospect?
And you achieve, you have a goal, you achieve this goal, and you just realize that you are smart. As I was, moving with my career at the University of Transkei as a lecturer, you find that, wow, everybody starts impressed with you. When I started articles, you do very well. So you just have this self-confidence. And then later on, I was criticized for being quiet. Even my friends, used to criticize me about being quiet. They would say, oh, I'm not going with Nonkululeko to that party. She's going to be quiet the whole time. So you think there's something wrong with you. And then suddenly we are being criticized because you have a strong personality. Haibo, kanti, I can't do anything right. So for many years, I really just ignored all this criticism from my partners about my personality. I used to just say to myself, well, this is who I am. You must accept me as I am. And in the first place, I'm the one who is always the champion of all these big things that we're achieving. Why are you complaining about my personality? Sort of live with it. But then, there comes that life of ups and downs. And I would fight with my partners, leave that business, and you don't know what motivates these decisions that you're making that end up being very destructive to your own life. So this whole childhood thing, at that time, we didn't know about, the impact of childhood trauma. Remember, we didn't know any of those things. So you're just grappling with trying to understand yourself, and there's not much information that you can get. And anyway, you are in denial, complete denial, that there's something wrong with you, because you grew up believing that there was something wrong with me. And now you discover that, no, I was just different from others. There was nothing wrong with me. But because of this life of ups and downs, because the downs were as deep as the ups, so at some point you have to, acknowledge that there is something wrong. I may not fully understand it. And so I can't be complaining that people don't understand me, but do I understand myself? Obviously, I don't. So that's when I then decided on this journey of self-discovery. Now, when you start this journey, you think that it is the small thing, because the first thing was to discover at Gobodo Inc., when we were doing leadership interventions, that I was actually an introvert. It was the first time for me to go through those psychometric tests and things like that. And then I understood myself as an introvert. Oh, I know that, you know, people don't like these terms now, but I was grateful for that understanding. Oh, that's where my quiet personality comes from. And secondly, you know, as an introvert, it's not easy for you to build relationships. You know, I see my extrovert friends or my extrovert partners, they can build relationships easily. Now I had to be intentional about developing business networks because I knew that in business I was not going to succeed without networks. But I was always mindful of the fact that I can't just develop many relationships all over the place because I couldn't cope with it. And things like, you know, when you are in a meeting and there are, you know, in a strategy session, the 2 days, whatever, you just are so exhausted by the end of the day. And I realized, oh, as an introvert, I need some quiet time, you know, just to get my energy back and all of that. So all that understanding helped me. Then I understood my personality. So I thought that was it. But Mills, I just knew there was still something wrong. What is it now? What is it now? And, you know, I would be encouraged by this desire of finding myself and still persisted and pursue. And something would happen that, you know, for instance, whenever there's, you know, in church, they talk about rejection in church. Whenever they spoke about rejection, I would think, that doesn't apply to me. I'm a strong personality. You know, the people suffering with rejection, they are quiet, they are people pleasers and blah, blah, blah. I'm not that. So you're in denial about that. And then I divorced when I was 34 with 3 children, and I just couldn't, after that, you know, I just couldn't find like normal, healthy love relationships. So I just didn't date and all of that. But I would explore with people and it would never work, you know. Unfortunately, because I was strong, not that these explorations were many, because as you know, men are afraid of strong women. So, but those few had this impact of Haibo. And now why can't I find love and all of that? It was one of those incidents then of exploration that then I had to acknowledge about this thing of rejection, because the way I responded to that one, there was this voice that came deep from inside of me. Why can't anybody love me? And you know, man, I'm dealing with this thing normally. It's one of those, it didn't work, you know, whatever. But this deep hurt of that is coming from somewhere within me, and you don't know. I'm like, where is that coming from? When this thing happened, that's when I had to acknowledge that no, there is something wrong, and I'm denying this thing of rejection. Let me investigate this thing of rejection. That's when I investigated it, and then I could see my problematic relationships with love relationships with men, and I always believed that people don't like me, you know, my problems with my partners and things like that. So now you start to deal with rejection, and then in that thing, that's why I found that, I learned about the ego and the wounded ego. And then I started investigating what this wounded ego is, which was responsible for this life of ups and downs. I used to ask myself, how can I be two people? One smart and stupid, one strong and weak, one wise and foolish. How is it possible? It was so confusing to me, Mills, this thing of being two people. But I was, so I would lose myself and I would literally not recognize myself. I promise you, I used to look myself in the mirror and say, okay, who are you? Who are you? Where is the Nonkululeko I know? Because that Nonkululeko would go and I wouldn't be able to find her at all. and until I got tired of suffering. And then suddenly there will be an awakening, and it will be like I come back online again. That's why I say mental brokenness is a reality, you know. Yeah. And I know that people don't have as drastic and severe episodes like I did, but we're all at some level suffering from this mental brokenness, and we don't know what to do with it. Most of us are in denial, which is why in my book, I share openly about this journey and openly about how I found healing, because I want people to embark on this journey for themselves.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now, in 1987, you qualified as the first Black woman chartered accountant in South Africa. It's a remarkable achievement. Eh? First Black woman chartered accountant in South Africa. And so this is a significant achievement that thrust you into the spotlight, into the limelight, and you became the center of public attention, public adulation. The media was after you. You got invited to corporate events and all those things. You offered all sorts of jobs and all that. How, in what ways did this achievement change your life? Number one, how did this change your life? And how did you had to deal with a lot of social expectations and pressures? So as a result of that, within your community, within the country, there's certain social expectations that were imposed on you, and how did you navigate those? So firstly, how did it change your life, and how did you navigate those social expectations and pressures?
So, I mean, Mills, we have a goal, to become a chartered accountant is a personal goal. And at this time I'm married, I have children. So, I mean, it's hard work trying to navigate this journey of yours in terms of your own self-development. And you're not thinking about, being the first Black woman chartered accountant or anything like that. And that day comes of the results, and you are nervous because you know that, I cannot go through this again. My kids are suffering. I have to pass first time, and people are telling you, Black people are failing this thing. How do you hope to pass it first time? I'm like, I have no room for failure. And wow, you pass. You are so excited, so relieved. And then the following day, your life literally changes when the news come out that I'm the first. Okay, I mean, when they said I'm the first, that didn't mean much to me. I never expected to be first. I never wanted to be the first. There were people who, who had were ahead of us, women who were ahead of us. So I never even thought that I was the first. I remember, when we were doing vet jobs, those women managers who didn't even greet you in the passage, who didn't become the first for some reason. Anyway, and then the media descends onto your own hometown, and you are just protesting. No, guys, this was a personal goal. I don't need all of this. I'm a shy girl from the Transkei. I don't need all of this attention. And Shem, this reporter from the SABC really just helped me, sobered me up, that this is not about you. You are now a role model to others, to women, to young children. And he was right, he was right. But that sobering also said, then if I'm opening the way for others, I then need to succeed. So that pressure was just heavy on me, because, my mom used to say to my firstborn sister, you are the head of the carriage. If you fall, the whole train will fall. So I had that memory of what my mother used to say. Your life just changes in the most positive ways. Opportunities open for you. And I'm just saying, this thing has just been such a blessing in my life of being a chartered accountant and the first Black woman chartered accountant, that you get into big boards, easily because of your qualification. And I'm always grateful to how going back to school that time and becoming a chartered accountant and becoming the first Black woman chartered accountant literally changed my life to this day.
Yeah. You began your accounting career with the KPMG, but you had always had a vision, to start your own accounting firm. That was a vision that you thought about, especially when you were in the Transkei and Unitra, and also influenced by people like Professor Weisben and that vision turned into reality when you opened the doors of your new accounting practice in 1992. How did, this is the accounting profession, auditing profession, very male dominated, lots of prejudice, lots of, riddled with prejudice and all sorts of, racism and other things. And as a woman, how did you succeed to translate this vision into reality, to start your own practice? And what challenges did you have to overcome, to realize that vision?
Yes. So first of all, I have to share this. You walk into KPMG having failed CTA because I took a gap year and had a second child, and you are just dismissed because those who are chartered accountants know that if you fail CTA, you're not going to be taken seriously in these firms. And I knew why I had failed. It's the only time in my career that I actually sacrificed for the sake of my children, who have really had to endure my ambitions. So you had to be conscious, because remember, I had allowed someone to define who I am. I had to be very conscious from that time that your opinions of me do not define who I am, and you don't even know me. So that became sort of a theme right through my life as a Black woman. When you go into business, you face all of these challenges of being a Black person and a Black woman in South Africa. And I always were conscious of the fact that I will not allow that to limit what I can achieve. So when I started practice, I remember how you're excited, you're in business, you think you're going to succeed, and boom, you meet closed doors. And I just used to bang on those doors until they opened. I banged on those doors until they opened. And but as you are developing, your practice from that small, practice I started in Umtata, you dream bigger. It's after 1994. We have to seize the moment and grow our businesses so that we can, aim for bigger opportunities. And we come together as Black accountants to form these medium-sized Black accounting firms. And the private sector, although fortunately for us, government opened doors for us, the private sector was totally closed to us. You banged onto those doors. I think those doors are fairly still difficult even today. So you just had to navigate this difficult terrain as a Black person, and especially as a woman. And as a woman, you are not just navigating this terrain outside with external stakeholders, but you're navigating that terrain even internally. Because what I found was that both men and women can accept a strong leader that is a man, but not a woman leader. So as I was sharing how I was just being criticized because of my personality. So I always just juggling these things. So when it came to SizweNtsalubaGobodo, so we have this dream of a big Black accounting firm, and we're excited. were knocking on doors and were told that, no, we raise funding overseas. Who's going to give us funding if our auditors are SizweNtsalubaGobodo? Sorry, guys, we really cannot, open these doors for you. And we keep banging on these doors. And I just told myself that we're going nowhere. This is our country. We deserve also to do big jobs. Why should we operate in the fringes of the economy of our own country? It's just not fair. So, you continue. And I just have to share the story of, so fortunately at that time, opportunities opened for us to, submit new tenders that were coming up. Now we're struggling within ourselves. Okay, we said we want to establish this big black accounting firm, but is the market ready for us? What if we lose everything? Because we used to tender jointly with the big accounting firms partners, emerging firm partners. But we said we wanted to do big things. Eventually, we had to face this reality of, no, we were going to tender on our own because we said we wanted to do big things. And I remember how we were overseas with Victor, who was the CEO, who was the chairman of SizweNtsalubaGobodo. And we're getting these messages from our partners. Hey guys, no, I think this is a risk. Let's not tender on our own. Let's tender, with the big four as we used to do. Now this fear comes up. What if they are right? What if we destroy everything that we've achieved in the last 15 years? But I had to face this fear. I go into my hotel room and I face this fear. And I just realized that, no, we said we wanted to do big things. There's no more SizweNtsaluba, there's no more Gobodo to go back to. It's either we move forward with this vision or it dies right here and now. I came out of that room and I said, no, we're going to tender on our own. And courage will always be rewarded, because one day you get this phone call from the chairman of the audit committee at Transnet. Nonkululeko, the board of Transnet has just decided to appoint SizweNtsalubaGobodo as the sole auditors of Transnet, and our lives changed.
We are a business school, Nonku, and we are always interested in success stories, but we're also interested in failures and setbacks. That's why we have case studies and all that. And I think, you emulated your parents. Your parents were very entrepreneurial. You went on to become an astute entrepreneur yourself. And in your entrepreneurial career, you started companies and had leadership failures and setbacks. And I can look, for instance, back to your experience with the Filtan and Konki partnership, which was not successful, and it made you to reflect in a significant way on leadership and business lessons. What happened there, or maybe what lessons have you learned without being specific? Just singing out. Can you just describe some of these failures and the personal business lessons? We're interested in this as a business school. What lessons did you learn from that failed partnership? And as a way to build forward. Yeah.
So business is business and friendship is friendship, really. Because I think the way we started our partnership was really on a friendly basis. We were both chartered accountants. We knew each other. I was growing very fast in the Transkei, and I invited Cindy to come and join me. She was based here in Johannesburg, to come and join me so that we can grow this business together. And we complemented each other so well, because I was strong in strategy and leading the business itself. And she was very technically strong. So she was a good auditor, ran with the training of the people and accounting systems and computer systems. So this thing was doing well. We managed to grow our business from 2 partners and two staff members to 2 partners and 30 staff, you know, in a very short time. And we were successful in running this business. But then personality clashes started to appear between the 2 of us because we were 2 different people. And I mean, you don't know what is going on. You know, you are blaming this one and that one, this one is blaming you, it's your fault, and then it's my fault. And it's just amazing how you can be caught up in a stupid thing of a personality clash, and how many excos and boards can get into a toxic, chaotic situation just because of personality clashes. Because we always want to lead people who look like us, who think like us, who do things like ourselves, and we don't understand personality diversity, that you need people to be different because you complement one another. And we ignored all of these beautiful things that we've shared and focused on the 20% that seemingly didn't work. But the biggest lesson also was the fact that, you know, when you go into business, you need to make sure that everything is in place. You have agreements that are, you know, that are in place. We didn't even have a partnership agreement. So when we split, we ended up in the courts, and only lawyers benefited from that split. And I learned a big lesson there that, you know, agreements are not for peace times. They are for those challenging times, because if you don't have that piece of paper that defines what should happen, you are dead. So this is what I want to say to young entrepreneurs who may be excited about their vision and forget these details that we have to take care of, and you end up in a difficult situations like I did. But the biggest lesson, of course, is how we are different as human beings, and we are different as leaders, and how important it is to have an appreciation and understanding of ourselves. First of all, you know, as we say, you've got to know, learn how to lead yourself before you can think that you will lead others. But in leading others, let's be mindful of the fact that those people who irritate you, I mean, I used to be so irritated, Mills, by, you know, those pessimistic partners who are always seeing problems, potholes everywhere. I used to think that they are such a curse in my life. And those ones who were, you know, sensitive and cannot make tough decisions, I used to be so fed up of those people. But as I began to understand personality diversity, I realized that, oh, actually these people are not a curse, they're a blessing, because these pessimistic ones, yes, in my rush, because I'm fast, in my rush, you know, I see the vision, I want to move fast, I do miss the potholes, and they slow me down to be able to see the potholes, and let's fix the potholes. But I also realized that once the potholes are fixed, they still, you know, they still don't want to move forward. And at those times I would be awake to say, no, guys, we fixed the potholes, we have a vision to accomplish, a destination to get to, we have to move. So I would force them to move at those points. And those sensitive ones, I realized that, no, sometimes I was too tough. And they helped me to soften a little bit, you know, and they would compliment me in that regard. Although when I was younger, I really just was always fed up with them. But later on, I appreciated that you can't just be a tough leader. What I always say is that, yes, you must challenge your people. And yes, you must be a present leader who's always available and there during the difficult times. I hate leaders who disappear when there are challenging times. You have to be a present leader, especially during challenging times, you know, but at the same time, you've got to support your team. You can't just challenge, demand, and don't support your team. So you have to be balanced. And leaders who are too soft also, you know, that's where things fall apart and there's chaos because we are just too nice a leader. Yeah, it's all about balance.
It's all about balance. I would like to invite members of the audience, as I indicated earlier. See, there's no comment or question in the chat box. So if you have a question, please use the chat box to write your questions or comments, and I will relay those to our guest, Nonkululeka Gobodo. You've led businesses, Nonku, and I would say the pinnacle of your business success was the merger that, successful merger, in my view, that you had, which led to the establishment of a SNG Grant Thornton, the largest Black auditing and accounting firm in South Africa. And from the perspective of, business schools, we study these measures and they're very tough, they're very tricky, right? At the best of times, very few companies made successfully for all sorts of reasons. But it seems this one seems to be a good example of a successful merger. And perhaps for our benefit, are you able to explain the reasons for this success? What would you say the key ingredients for a successful merger? And what kind of advice you would give? A lot of people perhaps here in the audience who also like to establish huge businesses like yours, who are ambitious. What lessons can you impart to them about how to go about, exploring these kinds of relationships, partnerships?
Yes, and we were so afraid to come together to build something big. Yeah. Because we like the safety and security of my own thing that I'm controlling. And I must commend accountants because we suppose we were the most disadvantaged out of all these professions. And we knew that it was not going to be possible for us to establish anything big until we came together. And you just have to forget egos and put your goal, ahead of yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to grow bigger. And we need, especially Black people and women, to have these dreams of coming together and building something big. And I do understand that, there were followers like I've had. I mean, many entrepreneurs who've read my book, they all have those stories of, now I had a partner and then we had a fallout. And from that time, I decided I'm never going to have a partnership, go into a partnership again. How did you even have the courage to do it again, And so when it became very clear that BE was now, taking shape and these international firms were complying with BE and were starting to lose ground, if you like, because we used to partner with them at a 50-50 basis, but now we're being, made to be subcontractors who could be given 20% of the job. That thing was not sustainable. We just realized that we're going to lose big time if we don't do something drastic. That's when I persuaded my partners, my colleagues in the Black accounting firms to come together. But I realized at that time that in measures, the studies are there, they don't succeed. I think it's over 80% failure rate of measures. So the first thing I did was to prepare myself. I attended courses around measures so that I can understand, why the reasons for those failures. And I had mentors. Michael Katz had just gone through, and ENS had just gone through a big measure. So I used to sit on a board with Michael Katz. So I went to him to mentor me. What are the lessons that you learned from that experience, so that I don't repeat those experiences? That's where mentorships are very critical. And we underestimate the power of mentorship, and we sometimes don't know how to use mentorships. For me, you know, whenever people say, can you be my mentor? Can you be my mentor? For me, it's all about, you have gone the mile ahead of me. If you share your experiences, at least I will not fall into the same potholes that you fell into. I want to avoid that. So my cat was very good at telling me what to watch for. But Mills, even all that preparation, could not have prepared us for the real thing of going through the merger itself. First of all, it's the negotiation. You know, we have these deal breakers, and then you fight over these deal breakers. And I must say that we had good advisors, and they did warn us even in the beginning that watch out for these things of the name of the firm. We're like, name? No, we're not going to start with a name. How can the name be a deal breaker? We've have a shared history. That should not be a big thing. I tell you, man, Mills did. I'm sorry to be calling you Miles. This thing of the name, and towards the end, was a deal breaker. The SizweNtsaluba partners were saying, no, we want our whole name and we want to be in front. And the Gobodo partners were saying, no, but Unonku is the only founder who is left. So it makes sense that her name should be in front. I had to wake up and say, this vision is bigger than me. Let's stop this whole nonsense. And that's why we ended up with that long name, SizweNtsalubaGobodo, and my name was last.
Yeah.
So it's a give and take, and this negotiation, and then it's about positions. Remember, we're bringing together two firms, so there's a head of audit, two. There's a head of advisory, two. There's a head of this, there's two CEOs, there's this. Yeah. Now we're fighting over positions. No one wants to give up their position. Again, it has to be a compromise. So even the negotiation itself is difficult. And then we overcome all of that. We agree to merge. Then the integration now, integrating two medium-sized firms was a mission and a half. Putting together these two firms, and we underestimated the amount of work it would take. So we woke up and realized that, no, we can't do this thing on our own. We need people to help us. So we hired people to help us. And then we still realized that, no, remember, we were an entrepreneurial firm that is now building, you know, systems and processes that we used to depend on the Big Four for. But now, because we want to do big things on our own, we have to build these systems ourselves. And how do we bring our people from an entrepreneurial firm to now a corporate that can compete with international firms? So we needed leadership programs, serious leadership programs for our managers and our partners to bring them up. And that's when we started the corporate academy. Fortunately, we were able to bring someone, South African, who was in the Netherlands, who ran our corporate academy. So you had to think of all of those things because failure was not an option for us. And everybody was saying we're going to fail, and we're determined that we're not going to fail. So what we did with Victor and myself, I was the chairman, and we're collating this business together. Victor was the CEO, but my role was to make sure that this merger succeeds. So we had a dedicated resource who was overseeing the whole merger, while Victor was responsible for you know, the operational side of the business, although we're running that together. So we had to think of all of these things to make sure that we don't fail. But the biggest thing that we didn't anticipate was culture. Yeah. Because of the shared history, we never thought culture would be a big problem. And invariably, most measures fail because of culture. This us and them, us and them, us and them, us and them becomes such a big issue because the way we did business, although we had a shared history, was completely different. And so I myself was complaining about, these SizweNtsaluba people, and they were complaining about, these Gobodo people. So we knew that if we don't fix this thing, it's going to be a big problem. And then we started to have interventions to deal with culture, because there was good in both cultures, but how do we take the good in both cultures and create a new culture out of that? And so we went through that. And Mills, we didn't lose people during the merger, but we actually started losing people after the merger, because when this new culture was settling, then that's when people were jumping ship. Like, I loved being part of an entrepreneurial firm. I don't want to be part of this new firm now that is emerging, which to me was good. Because, I mean, those people who don't fit the culture must go, so that you can bring in people who, who can be part of this culture, which is what we did. It was the most difficult things we've ever done. We were challenged to the core, but there was a time when we knew that we had crossed the Rubicon. This merger is a success.
All right, that's extremely enriching, Nonku, really, really educative. I have a question from Lebogang. Hi, I just started a bookkeeping business, and only started studying accounting. Is it too late to venture into business now? I'm 32, a Black woman. Any advice? And then there are comments. Sorry, Nonku. Actually, you also have some comments, some praises here. Not a question, but a comment. Thoroughly enjoyed the session. Nonku's story is incredible. Great lesson that how you start does not determine how you finish. Thank you for the nuggets and the reminder to dream and to be relentless in pursuit of excellence. I'm enjoying the session, as I think to myself, no load shedding formed against us shall prosper. My question to Ms. Gobodo is, what are the 3 main leadership qualities that you started your leadership journey with? And so your main leadership qualities. I think the first one is the person who just started, Lebogang started the bookkeeping business. She's 32, and she wants to study accounting. It's late for her to venture into business.
No, I mean, it's never early or late to start a business, because the young people start businesses and they're successful. But I mean, what I always say is that when you venture into business, first of all, you must have clarity of what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because you can't just have a vague vision. And with an understanding that a vision is not static. A vision is always evolving. I mean, I always say, you climb one mountain, there's the next mountain to climb. Because I always had this vision of, how can I take my business to the next level? So being open to that. Secondly, and the most important thing is, when you go into business, you've got to understand those issues of, first of all, cash flow is king. Right? You've got to make those decisions and choices around managing your cash flow very well. And being flexible enough to be able to support your business. So I always say to people that, yes, you have this vision, yes, you're passionate about it, but you must be willing to do other things that may not be part of the main vision to support your vision. Like, for instance, when I started back then, because I didn't like auditing, I really didn't want to go into auditing. So I started a consulting business. But after a year in this business, I just realized that cash flow I'm not going to manage with consulting, because consulting jobs come and go. You know, when you don't have jobs, what's going to happen? So I need to be flexible enough to add auditing, which, you know, brings annuity income, because the audit you do every year. And so, although I didn't like auditing, I brought in auditing to support my vision, to support my business. So you've got to be flexible enough to be able to manage your cash flow. And you've got to be mindful as the business grows, it has new demands, you know, and you've got to add the right people at the right time, because what I then found is that as the business was growing, you know, I couldn't be everything in the business as I used to do when it was small. So I brought in a partner, for instance. I brought in, you know, people to do admin and so on, and add more resources to the business. Because if you don't deliver, people are looking for good service. And your next job, you know, depends on how well you did the other job. So you just have to make sure that you service your clients and well, because it's going to be word of mouth after that. But if you're not servicing your clients well, you know, no one's going to be recommending you. So all of those things that she has to take into account, but I can't say which is the best age to go into business. I don't believe that. It's just that we're talking about young entrepreneurs a lot. 32 is still very young. I was also 32 when I went into business.
Yeah. So I've got, do you have a pen, Nonku? I've got 3 more questions for you from the audience. So
yes, I have a pen. The one about leadership,
quality,
about leadership qualities.
Qualities, yeah, the main leadership qualities. And then I've got one from Phumza Filita. So I'll summarize them, you know, for the benefit of, so what are the factors? So the one about the leadership qualities that have shaped you, and then this Phumza Filita, what are the factors you have seen to be limiting the current generation of leaders, particularly Black ones, female leaders in other words? What are we doing that you say is getting in our way? Okay, so that's a Phumza. And then anonymous attendee, how did you overcome the fear of starting the business and resist the urge to go back to being an employee in the early days of the business? Good question. And then the Boni Sobutelezi, why do you think women in power don't create space for other women when they get to top positions and want to be the only ones there? How do we encourage women to stop being their own enemies and encourage each other to step up and grow? So those will be the next ones. Okay, so maybe I should take the last one. How do you succeed in obtaining a mentor? I've approached 3 women in leadership and have not succeeded in getting a mentor. What is the best approach in getting a mentor? And then I think there's another one. Sure, we have a prolific set of participants here, rating all the way. So the last one, I think I'll take the last one. What advice would you give to your younger self regarding managing success, ego, and relationships?
So just repeat that. Yeah.
What advice would you give to your younger self regarding managing success, ego, and relationships? Is there anything that stands out as something that you do differently? I think that will be the questions, the remaining questions before we conclude. Nonku?
Okay. I think the most important thing about leadership qualities is understanding yourself. You know, I realized this very early on, that if we all come with strengths and weaknesses, and you've got to know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, so that, you know, in those areas where you are weak, you can surround yourself with people who are strong in those areas. So for me, that was when I began to understand that it was a defining moment for me, and not try to be someone I'm not. And I do understand that, any job there will be parts of the job that you enjoy, and there are parts of the job that you don't enjoy. And I always say that I'll do whatever is required of me. But this issue of understanding yourself and understanding how you can collaborate as a leadership team is one of those qualities that I think really helped me in my leadership journey. Factors that are limiting current leaders and women. Hey, Mills, I mean, when you look at how we are leading our organizations, our country, this is something that is really, really worrying me. And I ask myself, when you are a leader, you've got to do your job, the job that we're hired to do, because the cost of poor leadership is very high, as we see all around us. And this is something that I just cannot understand, that can we blame corruption for our problems? Is it the only reason, or we just have leaders who have no appreciation of their responsibility as a leader, who don't have that appreciation? When I was in practice, I used to be so mindful of the fact that there are employees here. These employees are contributing to the economy. They've got cars, houses, cell phones, blah, blah, blah. If we fail, there will be a big knock in the economy. That thing used to sober me up, that I have to succeed. Yes, our people are looking up to us, but I have to succeed because I have a responsibility as a leader to make sure that this business succeeds. So to me, it seems like there's just this carelessness of not caring about, what happens, all about personal interest, maybe, positions and things like that. And I just don't understand why we have such irresponsible leadership in the country. But around women, I mean, you take this UCT thing, and I don't want to go into it all. You don't know whether, is it because we don't support, although we're saying we're committed to putting women in positions, then we don't support them, when we put them into these positions? Or is there some reflection also as women leaders of maybe expecting people not to judge our leadership as they would judge leadership normally? We still expected to be good leaders, We still expected to manage the leadership team and manage the organization and all of those things. So I'm not sure whether it's a combination of that or what, but for me, whether you're a woman or a man, whether you're black or white, you've got a responsibility as a leader, which you must take seriously. And please, just do your job. Can't emphasize that enough. And your job is to lead. How do you overcome the fear of going into business? And I must say that, when you are a natural entrepreneur, you just have this courage to go into business. And not that you don't have fears or worries, but I was always determined to succeed. And it didn't mean that I didn't meet challenges. Whatever challenges I met, I used to focus on solving dealing with those challenges, because I want to succeed in business, never allowing fear to stop me, and never allowing the first challenge that comes, we are thinking of quitting. you know. When you go into business, you're going to face challenges. You just have to have that resilience of knowing that the challenges cannot stop you to succeed. They are there to be solved. You just have to overcome fear. You just have to proceed with the fear, as far as I'm concerned. Because I tell you, your courage will always be rewarded. I've proven that. And I'm not saying when you've made a mistake, persevere in a business that is going nowhere. Please, you know, again, it's just taking responsibility and being able to judge the situation from a level head. You know, there are people who just persevere when the thing is just not working, because maybe you've made a mistake. And when you've made a mistake, you need to know that you've made a mistake and be kind to yourself. Why do women not support each other? This one is just a difficult one, because there are a lot of theories to this. And you'll hear many women who have been supported by other women. But I just want to say that, you know, women, they work in a very hostile environment. They have got many demands, juggling, you know, home, children, and career. And maybe they become so absorbed in trying to succeed that they forget about others around them. And I'm not excusing those women who deliberately, you know, will not support other women. But generally, we need to also understand that this executive wants to succeed. And so you cannot expect, first of all, for her to know what your needs are in terms of mentorship and things like that. That do knock on the door and ask for whatever help and assistance that you ask, and don't make demands, because remember, the woman is to work double the man who's doing the same job, and it is something that we have to address somehow. You know, we really have to address this thing at some point. And I suppose, you know, when you get into the position, you forget that you are complaining about those who are ahead of you. But it's always sad to hear the story of women not supporting one another. How to succeed in getting a mentor? I think this whole thing of mentorship is overrated, as far as I'm concerned. I always tell people that, you know, you can have someone like myself whom you meet twice a year and just use that time, you know, wisely to be able to get as much as possible from this person. But the best mentors are the ones inside the organization. You've got to identify your sponsors, your mentors from inside the organization, and build those relationships. No one is going to build the relationships yourself. Some of us are quiet, and it's not easy to reach out to people. We've got to understand that weakness and overcome it by reaching out to people. Otherwise, you're always going to end up with mentors that you don't even want. What advice would you say to your younger self? Oh, read my book. Really, just read my book. I made so many mistakes. And my advice to my younger self would be that, you know, I commend you for being so resilient, because if that younger self was not resilient, I wouldn't have made it. And forgive yourself for the mistakes that you've made. They were just mistakes. You know, I used to be so ashamed of the mistakes I've made, and now I appreciate those mistakes and how I was able to learn from them, grow from them, and do bigger things from those mistakes. So it's fine to make mistakes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. You know, it is incredible. There's so many comments and questions, and we've run out of time. We know we start on time, we finish on time at Wits Business School. We will convey some of those that you couldn't answer, Nonku, to you, you know, just to reflect on, and perhaps, you know, if the people who send the questions or made the comments, we have their details, we can get back to them. But unfortunately, you know, we have to conclude now, and this is how we conclude this afternoon our conversation with our guest, Nonkululeka Gobodo, trailblazer, business pioneer, and leader. We're very, very proud of you. The CEO of Awaken Global. You've been very transparent, you've been generous, you've been fascinating, you've been, you know, inspiring, you've been instructive this afternoon. Thank you for sharing these valuable insights with us so generously. And thank you for your leadership and service to our country. I'm really, really excited about the relationship, you know, that we have with you, and we'll continue to have with you as Vets Business School. I just want to recommend this book. Folks, go to Exclusive Books or any other decent bookshop and get this book. This book is extremely fascinating and very educative. Awakened to myself, you know, Nonkululeka Gobodo. It's a fantastic book. Now, in closing, I would like to thank everyone in the audience who attended and participated in this event. I would like to thank, in particular, my colleagues at WBS who have worked behind the scenes to make this event a reality. Jayton Custon, Alison Gaylard, Medupi Lamola, Temna Rashachuayo, Ikeleng Ramayema, Temho Matasa, and Rihandu Makam. And from Awaken Global, worked very well with you, Nonku, and with Mashilo, James Mathala. Fantastic collaboration there. And thank you, everyone, and good evening. And
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Everyone.
It was wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.